Let's begin the broadcast with a CNN News 18 exclusive by our editor Manoj Gupta. We're learning of a joint psychological operation, Psyops, by China and Pakistan that has now targeted the French-made Rafale fighter jets acquired by India. This strategic move has revealed Chinese ambition to penetrate, number one, into the Tier 1 weapons market, and also this operation has been disguised as a wartime fallout. It was in fact employed by Pakistan's DGISPR to promote Chinese weaponry. Remember, Pakistan boasted of weaponry from China, the F-35s. According to top intelligence sources, China exposed the blueprint of its weapon marketing laboratory and also offered personal bribes to key decision makers to cancel the Rafale deal. Chinese defense attaches worldwide assured Rafale clients like Indonesia, Serbia, also Egypt, to cancel or reconsider their order, citing poor combat performance of the Rafale jets. China even offered up to 50% discount on the J-35A stealth jets, showcasing Pakistan's endorsement as a proof of quality. Remember, we have been talking about how China has used Pakistan as in fact, as a field, an exercise to, in fact, put their weaponry on display so that they can further market it to the other global players. They've also gone on to say that additionally, they have forged diplomatic cables, and they, in fact, went on to allege that France advised India to ground the Rafales, a claim that has so far been denied by Dassault Aviation and also the French Defense Ministry. Now let's take a look at what the intel source really is suggesting. Here's what we learnt and we found out, as this is a disinformation campaign that was so far running, something that has been completely dissed by not just the French MOD but also Dassault Aviation, which is a maker of the Rafale fighter jets. Number one that we in fact learn of as far as this Psyops against Rafale is concerned, that has been orchestrated by China and Pakistan, that China eyes at Tier 1 arms market entry. It wants to gain access into that weapons market so that China now, other than France, Russia and US, is looked at as an obvious market for acquiring weaponry when it is about defense purposes. Number two, we are learning Pakistan's DGISPR used to promote Chinese weapons. So they were instrumental in putting out that information out so that they can dissuade the other players who were in talks to buy the Rafale jets of France. They are slightly wary. China also presses Rafale clients to withdraw. So it's not just DGISPR's campaign. China was also in talks with the key players like Indonesia, Egypt for that matter, who were already in talks with France to buy the Rafale jets off of them. They in fact were pushed and pressurized by China, claiming that it's not functioning well in combat circumstances. Bribes were even offered to cancel the Rafale deal. That's how bad it got, that there were money that was being offered so that that Rafale deal is not eventually taking place. In fact, if we talk about the J-35A that was given to Pakistan, that was in fact the fighter jet that was used by Pakistan. It was employed into the service in the midst of this Operation Sindoor, did not fare well. There are ample amount of evidences that suggest that, so that playing ground for weaponry testing that China in fact used Pakistan as, that seemed to have failed. Pakistan's endorsement was used to push the J-35A. Again, has been used, but how much did it have any kind of or resonance for that matter is also the big question. If we further take a look at what all are we learning, there is also forged cables that we learn of that were claiming that France in fact advised Rafale grounding. Remember, there were reports on whether during Operation Sindoor Rafale fighter jets were hit, and that in fact was leading to this kind of information that it was France that was pushing countries like India to ground the Rafale jets. Dassault Aviation and also French Ministry of Defense have denied all these claims. So this is all that we are learning as part of that intel source, that this is what is going on. China and Pakistan are hand in glove. They are suggesting Rafale fighter jets are not working, do not buy them, for countries like Indonesia and Egypt for that matter. India has already bought and acquired many of those Rafale jets, and even that is being used as an example. To further gain perspective on this big story that we are tracking, let me bring in our colleague Siddhant Mishra, who is now with us on the broadcast. So then how do we go from here? On the one hand, China claims that Rafale's not doing great in combat situation. On the other hand, they are offering J-35A at 50% the price, something that we broke way earlier on CNN News 18. And it also, in fact, underlines that they want to hard sell their weaponry into the global market. So that assessment is all and amply clear for the world to see.
Well, that's right. And in fact, strategic experts have been saying it from day one that the whole purpose of China backing Pakistan, obviously, they have all-weather partnership. But, the strategic goal of China was to test its weaponry, to check the capacity of its military equipment, and also to showcase the might of its military equipment. And perhaps that is exactly what China did. By backing Pakistan. In fact, there are reports indicating that there were Chinese personnel in the control room when Pakistan attempted to attack India. And now we're getting to know, in fact, this is what French intel sources are indicating, that there was this disinformation campaign which was run by Chinese embassies worldwide. And in fact, this campaign was backed by AI-generated videos, video game depictions to simulate supposed combat, then fake videos of how Rafale has been shot down, etc., etc. So all these videos were being circulated by defense attaché, posted in Chinese embassy worldwide. And perhaps, the pitch was that Rafale was down, and J-series fighter jets are better than Rafale. So, Chinese have been working really hard to sell their J-series fighter jets. Perhaps there are very little, acceptance to that. There are very little, other than Pakistan and some other countries, nobody, believes in Chinese jet technology. And perhaps they found it a time. They found it an opportunity to sell their products and to to malign the reputation of Dassault Aviation and the downing of Rafale jets. So this was done, and this is what French intel report tells us, Graham. But looking at a larger context, there is no doubt that Chinese used this as an opportunity to test their equipment, to sell their equipment, to approve their military might, the might of their equipment, their defense products. But they failed, because in an Indian release, if you remember, it clearly mentioned that how India choked Chinese air defense systems, and after which Indian armed forces hit key military installations inside Pakistan. That is the official wording in the Indian PIB release. So they failed, but all they were left was to do a disinformation campaign, and that is exactly what they did against Rafale jets. In fact, they tried convincing countries like Indonesia. Indonesia is willing to buy Rafale jets. They tried convincing Indonesia and various other countries that don't go for Rafale, go for J-series. They are better. Look how Rafale has been down by the Pakistani, etc., etc. So this was done by them, and it was obviously there is indeed a strategic goal, objective to be achieved. But having said that, it also has to do with the rivalry, competition of these industrial military.
Absolutely. So let's bring in a word from Major General Rajan Kochhar, who is now joining us on the broadcast. Major General Kochhar, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. The fact that we are learning of this strategic Psyops at play by China and its ally Pakistan, how much of a reputational damage you think has been sustained by France and the Rafale?
Thank you, Ria, for bringing me to this discussion. You see, if you study this campaign of China, a three warfare strategy which it often employs, and the psychological and the info warfare are those two pillars of that strategy. We are seeing that in play because the kind of strategic communication which China is sending across, it is trying to run down the performance of Rafale during operational Sindhu. Uh, China is not will not be able to succeed in this campaign, and I will tell you why. First is Rafale has already sold 273 aircraft overseas to more than 7 countries. Each country has validated this aircraft in a combat situation. If you look at Afghanistan, if you go Libya, you look at Syria, all these combat situations, this aircraft has been tested. The third important aspect is that the world market has not given so far a single order to the Chinese aircraft in question, J-35 Alpha. It is only Pakistan which has expressed a you can say interest to buy around 40 of these aircrafts in the view of the Pakistan's uh, low combat potential of its air force, because Pakistan doesn't have a stealth aircraft in its armory as of now, and it has got no aircraft which can compare to Rafale. So I think this is a psychological campaign. It's an info warfare, and I just carried out a small kind of analysis in terms of the capability of these two aircrafts. Stealth, uh, it's almost on par. You 4.5 generation is the Rafale aircraft, whereas the J-35 is the fifth generation. Electronic warfare, Rafale scores. Weapon versatility, Rafale is better. Sensor fusion, Rafale is better. Range and ferry range, Rafale is better. And maintenance simplicity, Rafale is better. So if we talk to experts who have actually analyzed both these aircrafts, because any country which ventures to buy such an expensive aircraft will carry out a technical analysis of both the competitors. And it is very, very clear you can create any kind of a propaganda, you can create any kind of a news, but I do not think it will make any visible impact on the buyers in the market, because the buyers in the market are aware today which is a better aircraft, and definitely Rafale scores over the Chinese aircraft.
And Major General Kocher, if we assess what is going on here, on the one hand, we've already broken the story on how China was wanting to sell its J-35s for half the price. I mean, what does it say about their marketing strategy and about their basically how they're pushed against the wall? They are really desperate so that the world sees the J-35s, looks at China as an option for weapons market, and that is how the desperation has come to fore. And on the other hand, there is this disinformation campaign that is of course been exposed by France and the intelligence agencies there, and something that has been put to fore now that we are talking about it, and then putting out that campaign that Rafale is eventually not faring well. So if we assess those two things together, clearly China is not faring any better here.
See, absolutely right. If you see the type of the Chinese military equipment used in operational Sindoor, and I'll just give you an example. PL-15 missile did not reach the designated target. We actually saw it landing in Hisar itself. Then we had the wing loom drones, which were shot down by the Indian Air Defense, and not the Air Force Air Defense, the Army Air Defense itself actually shot down with their own weapons of air defense. Then we had this HQ-9, their air defense system, which was not able to stop a single missile of ours, and we used more than a dozen missiles on their Air Force bases, and all of them landed on the target. So this was a kind of a shock to the Chinese, that whatever equipment they gave to Pakistan was not performing. So there had to be a counter somewhere, because in case this narrative took hold, unfortunately, Ria, I must say that we as a country are not very good in narrative building and strategic communication. I think Pakistan is better. And that we actually saw in Operations Sindoor, but we made subsequent amends and we made it known to the world in particular, and to those countries who are interested in buying military hardware in large, that Chinese equipment has been a big failure in Operation Sindoor. And as the deputy chief also mentioned, it was like a live lab for the Chinese to experiment their equipment. But unfortunately, it has come a cropper, as we have seen the way the operation unfolded itself.
But Major
And
General Kocher, while you say that the testing ground really eventually did not benefit China, using Pakistan in live combat situations so that they can tell the world that, look, J-35s are faring really well, India has faltered all of those hopes for China. But India did acknowledge aircraft losses. But, and something that has also been underlined by the France Air Force Chief, Jerome Boulanger, where he said that there was one particular Rafale that did go down. But this was an earlier generation Rafale. So this is the first known combat loss of a Rafale which France has sold to over 8 countries. So how does one assess that situation?
very interesting actually question. You see, this thing has not been made official as yet, whether we have lost a Rafale or not. It's purely on speculative ground. And even if we consider that we have lost one, see, you have to see in what circumstances have we lost that aircraft. It was not a air-to-air combat situation. It was not in a situation that the Pakistani or the JF-10C fighters were encountering the Rafale, and they outmaneuvered the Rafale in the air-to-air maneuvers. So it was basically, it was targeted while Rafale was within our own territory.
Okay.
Many reasons have been propounded for that. One of the reasons being given was that we were focusing on only targeting their terrorist sites, and we did not attempt to target their aircrafts, which was in the air at that point of time.
Okay.
Fail, as well as all the Indian aircrafts which were in air at that point of time, very well knew that the Pakistani aircrafts were also in the air on the other side. But the intention was not to fire a missile at them. You see, what happens is, in an air situation, whosoever can see that other aircraft and fire first will always be a victor.
Okay.
Now, we were seeing those Pakistani aircrafts, but we did not fire, because our intention was not to actually target their military targets or their military installation at that point of time. Pakistan violated this game, and Pakistan created an escalation on that day when it targeted our aircrafts. So, as
Absolutely.
CDS also said, it was a tactical kind of thing by us.
Absolutely. But that is not going to be helping China and the disinformation that is looking to, in fact, go ahead with, along with its ally Pakistan. Major General Kocher.